This is the Tree of Life, Season 7, Chapter 7. In this episode, we will be talking about affirmational structures and drawing into the discussion why negational structures of a certain size become affirmational. To start off, affirmational structures were described as experiences corresponding to self-conscious impulses that affirm other experiences of others and of the self. They were loosely linked to the archetypal constellation of an actor in that, through the intersection of one actor with another, are 9 dialogues of expression corresponding to 9 experience channels corresponding to the affirmation of 9 impulses. Now, in the past few episodes, we talked about how direct ground experiences underlying an affirmational structure are paired such that a pair, one left-handed, one right, corresponding to reciprocation, coexist, maintaining a higher level of entropy and energy to the interaction. Which is to say, that the 9 dialogues are chiral, being bidirectional, representing the intersection of 2 divergent paths. But that is not the whole of the story. What I have heretofore called divergent paths are not in fact totally divergent, they are cyclical, reoccurring, so long as individuals remain joined by an archetypal constellation. Which is to say, the self-conscious tension between them is preserved by coupling of their oxytocin-cortisol equilibrium, mediated by oxytocin. The intersections described by particular experience channels for expression are often, though not always, reoccurring. This means that the self-conscious tension preserved by their separation is released periodically by each intersection. Thus, once integrated into an archetypal structure, the tension which creates tighter associations is oscillatory. That is to say, it fluctuates periodically, rhythmically, coinciding with each common experience. Thus, archetypal structures are not just symmetrical, they oscillate. As they oscillate, they release that tension while retaining their structure. As a result of this, we can see that negation, albeit effective at transforming tension from an archetypal constellation or structure into a particular bodily rhythm, fails to produce recurring oscillations, merely producing echoes in the affirmational or hybrid structure where associations are loosened. In other words, negation creates non-recurring ripples, because interpersonally it produces desynchronization and loss of synchronicity, resulting in fewer or non-repeating intersections. Now, this also shows why negational structures, or hybrid structures, invariably become affirmational when they become large enough. Because the quality of affirmation is not a product of symmetrical reciprocation, but rather is a product of the release of tension corresponding to oscillations within a structure. As these oscillations happen regardless of whether the structure is negational or affirmational, once they become large enough. So the question becomes, what is meant by large? The answer is that a structure, whether negational or affirmational, as it becomes interconnected with a larger number of concepts and ideas, eventually becomes so concentrated that it generates these affirmatory oscillations. Thus, in time, if you continue adding new concepts and ideas, it becomes crowded enough to generate tension release in groups. Likewise, it is also clear that the tension, which is absorbed by a self-referential impulse or bodily rhythm, causes urgency with respect to that rhythm, manifesting as expression of the need. Which is to say, that the need becomes urgent in response to mapping of the dissonant space. This mapping produces through sublimation new concepts and ideas, which, when incorporated into the hybrid structure, create tighter associations. That's the end of the podcast for today.